One of the more common misunderstood concept is how Childe and his Riptide work. His Riptide is definitely not a very straightforward mechanics, and that's why we're gonna spend a video explaining it today. However, his Riptide is one of the reasons why he has very insane, or to be honest, I would even dare to call it broken AOE damage. Basically, when you attack a marked enemy, you do this AOE hydro damage known as the Riptide. But of course, the action mechanics is much deeper than that, and that's why we're gonna go over how it works today. But of course, if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to subscribe, and let's get started. First of all, critting with a normal attack will allow you to apply Riptide. And then you'll see that the enemy has been marked, and that's how you know they currently have the Riptide status on them. And every time you hit them after that, they will trigger a Riptide effect with a 1.5 second cooldown interval. You do not need to crit or anything. All you have to do is hit them once every 1.5 seconds. Here you can see my Childe have only 10% crit rate. But you can also apply the Riptide using Childe range elemental burst. As you can see here, it will automatically apply the Riptide status, which means then you'll be able to proc the Riptide every 1.5 seconds, regardless if you crit or not. So in fact, you actually don't even need to build any crit on Childe to proc the Riptide properly. Basically, any team comp nowadays, they always start with a ranged Childe elemental burst, which you can see in my previous rotation guide video. The Childe Riptide contribute to a good amount of portion in his total damage, but once you scale that up to AOE, it becomes a broken level of damage. In order to demonstrate why Childe AOE is broken, I'm going to be using a very undergeared Childe. I'm going to be using the level 80 battle pass weapon, and the reason is simply for the effect that let me group the enemy a little bit better. It's at refinement 1 and it's at level 80, not even at level 90. Furthermore, my artifact, I'm only equipping 2 pieces. I'm going to be using the feathers, and I'm going to be using the Hydro Damage Goblet. These are not even the same set, so I don't even get any set bonus. And in terms of my talent, I'm currently at 4, 8, and 7. You will notice that I don't have the +3 level on my talent. That is because my Childe do not have any constellation. Alongside my Childe is going to be my Kazuha. However, my Kazuha is going to be fully naked. The only reason I'm bringing Kazuha is simply for grouping. Although I could get better grouping with Venti, I'm just bringing Kazuha for the demonstration purposes. Here you can see that even though my Childe is significantly under gear, he can actually still kill these treasure hoarder rather quickly, and this is the power of AOE. We're gonna start with a Childe range elemental burst to quickly apply the mark to every enemy. You notice also that my damage here is actually very low, and that's how you know I didn't cheat and secretly swap all my gear, because you know you can just see the damage number right here on the screen. And then you later realize that once you start proccing the Riptide, there's infinitely many numbers on the screen, and what is happening here? For most characters, they have what we like to call linear scaling, which means the amount of damage you do and the amount of enemies is in a 1-to-1 ratio. So for example, if you're doing a Shadow Plunge and you hit 3 enemies, you will do 3 times your amount of damage because, well, you're hitting all of them together, right? So you hit 3 enemy, you do damage to all 3 of them, you do 3 times your total damage. However, this is not the same for Childe. When you are using Childe and you are hitting a bunch of enemy in a AOE fashion, his damage actually go up much faster. That is because he has quadratic scaling. Let's suppose you are fighting 2 enemy number 1 and enemy number 2. When you attack them, enemy number 1 will proc a Riptide, and this will cause a chain reaction onto enemy number 2, and he will also proc a Riptide around him. So we'll call these R2 and R1, and we're using different color, right? So the first Riptide will first do 100 damage to the first enemy, but because it is in the AOE fashion, it will also do 100 damage to the second enemy. But likewise, the second Riptide will also do 100 damage to the second enemy. But once again, since it have a good AOE radius, it will also do 100 damage to the first enemy. Even though we're only fighting 2 enemy, you notice that we actually have 4 instance worth of damage, and that's why there's 4 number currently on the screen. And because of this, the total amount of damage we're doing here is 400 damage. When you're playing character like Childe, let's suppose he do 100 damage to each individual enemy. Because there's n number of enemy, in this case 2, then he will do n times the amount of damage. So in this case, he'll do 200 damage because there's 2 enemy. But you'll notice that for Childe, even though he did 100 damage per instance, he did 400 damage in total. So this n here is actually going to be 4 as opposed to 2. This is why Childe AOE is insanely powerful, because let's suppose you're fighting n number of enemy, the total multiplier on your damage is actually going to be n squared. So if you're fighting 2 enemy in this case, you're going to be doing 4 times the amount of damage. And so here is a quick exercise question. If we add in a third enemy who will also trigger another Riptide, which we will call R3, how many times of damage we're going to be doing right now? Well, it's pretty simple, because there's 3 enemy n equals to 3. Now we're going to actually be doing 9 times damage. 9 times our original damage. That's one of the huge reasons why the original clip is possible. That is because with 6 enemy on the field, we are actually doing 36 times damage. If you have ever seen a clip like this in the background where they do a bunch of AOE Riptide damage and instantly killing everything, now you know the reason. Okay, maybe fighting 6 enemy is a little bit too much and too favorable for a quadratic scaling character like Childe, but I'll be honest, fighting in AOE fashion is not too uncommon in the Abyss. In the current Abyss, we have 12-1 second half, which is 4 enemy at once, 3 Spectre and the boss enemy. For 12 Chamber 2, the second half it's semi AOE, there's always 2 enemy on the field, and then she spawned Fly, which is like a little bit more. And then of course we have Chamber 3, which is not too hot in this case because the Rune Guard at best is 2 enemy, but even if 2 enemy is still not bad, right? And then we go to floor 11, 3 enemy at once together, which is really good. I think there's 4 enemy here, always 3 slime and the Geo Bishop, so that's 4, which is really good. These I don't have to talk about, these are just pure AOE, pure AOE. I think these are all also pure AOE. So you can see, like, anytime that you see a floor like these, which are not too uncommon, Childe can really do a lot of damage with his AOE. Currently in the game, there's only 2 damage source that is quadratic scaling. Anything else is always linear or worse. A example of being worse than linear is Beidou. And the 2 different quadratic scaling damage in the game is Childe's Riptide, which I just showed you in this video and properly, hopefully I properly explained it. And the other one is the interaction between Ganyu and Venti, which we have explained before in the Morgana video. These 2 are the only quadratic scaling things in the game, and it's why they are very good against AOE. You probably have heard many times why Morgana is broken against AOE environment, and it's more or less identical with Childe, although it's only on Childe's Riptide, which is less strong than, you know, the Venti Ganyu thing, but it's still a very strong AOE damage. And I think that people are not understanding it. Maybe people don't even recognize that Childe Riptide have quadratic scaling. Maybe people don't even know what quadratic scaling is, because, you know, it's a mathematical concept that is not very easily understood by many people. And that's why I think it is very important to make this video to properly explain what exactly is quadratic scaling on Childe's Riptide and why it does a tons of AOE damage. With that being said, that's the end of this video. This video ended up being a lot longer than I thought. I'll be honest, originally I thought I can explain this in a minute, and then when I start making the video, it's like, wow, it's so long. And I guess that's why it's not understood by people, because it is actually mechanically very complex. With that being said, as always, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please leave a like and comment. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. And I'll see you all next time.